In this lesson, we're going to talk about square roots. You've been dealing with square roots for a while, and most times we've always known the square root. We know the square root of 9 is 3, or the square root of 16 is 4. Today we're going to work with square roots that we don't know, and we don't want to use a calculator to get a weird decimal answer. For instance, if I asked you the square root of 20 and you put that into a calculator, you will get a decimal that just goes on forever. And we don't want that. We want what we would consider as a more simplified answer of 20, or the square root of 20. To do that, let's think, what numbers can I multiply together to get 2 that I know the perfect So to simplify the square root of 20, let's figure out first how we can multiply to get 20. Well, we could do 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. From this list, do I know the square root of any of these numbers? Oh, look at that. I do know the square root of 4. The way that's going to help me is I'm going to break this apart and say the square root of 20 is the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. And I can squeeze a little multiply dot in there because 4 times 5 is 20. The whole reason I did this is because I know the square root of 4, which is just 2. So what is the square root of 20? It's 2 square roots of 5. And that is a simplified square root. Let's try to simplify 3 more square roots. The first step might be that you put these into your calculator and you get a decimal answer. And that's what tells you that you need to simplify them. How do we simplify? We start by figuring out ways to multiply to these numbers. So in your head or on paper, I can multiply to 48, 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12, 6 and 8, and that is it. From here, is there any number in this list that I know the square root of? There is. I know the square root of 4, and I also know the square root of 16. Little hint from Mr. Repka. Use the largest number that we know the square root of. So let's use 3 and 16. So we'll break that apart into the square root of 3 and the square root of 16. We do not know the square root of 3, so I will leave it the same. I do know the square root of 16 is 4. And just a little bit of a making your answer look nice, we're going to put the 4 out in front. So the square root of 48 is 4 square roots of 3. Now I know what you're thinking. What if we didn't do your hint, Mr. Repka? What if we just tried to do it with the 4 and the 12? I'll tell you, you'd still get the same answer, but you're making yourself do another step. It's up to you if you want to do extra work. Let's do it with the 4 and the 12. So that would mean the square root of 4 and the square root of 12, again, because 12 times 4 is 48. We know the square root of 4 is 2. But we're not done, because I can break 12 apart. If I made my list for 12, 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, oh, there's another number I know the square root of. So this would be 2 square roots of 3 square roots of 4. That means 2 times the square root of 4, which is 2 square roots of 3, or 4 square roots of 3. This is the same answer we got before, but this is a lot more work than when I did the 3 and the 16. So when you simplify square roots, simplify it using the highest or the largest square root in your list. Let's try the square root of 125. If you want to pause the video and go ahead, if you think you have it, you can do that. What you should do is think of ways to multiply to 125. 1 and 125. 5 and 25. And what I'm going to do is, as I'm working down, I'm always thinking, do I have a square root? And I do. 25 is a perfect square. So let's go ahead and break apart 125 into the square root of 5, the square root of 25. Square root of 25 is just 5, and leave our square root of 5 at the end. The square root of 125 simplified is 5 square roots of 5. Square root of 98, last one. Again, as we make our list, let's think about if we know any perfect squares. I'm writing 1 and 98, but you could skip the 1 row. How about 2 and 49? Oh, and already I know the square root of 49. So let's break it apart. Square root of 2, square root of 49. I don't know the square root of 2. I do know the square root of 49. And that's all there is to simplifying square roots. Make a multiples list, find the largest perfect square in that list, and then break apart your square root.